there's something to be said here for these next 2 days. Being a little bit of feeling like we're tying up loose ends. Don't you feel that way? Like, I take the goals for the next 2 days. And I don't just mean this show by any stretch. Goals for the start of the football season. Number 1, Nick Bosa. Sign a contract.
Number 2, find a kicker who actually can kick the football and have it go between those two yellow uprights.
They did do that. They signed another kicker today.
Right.
As an insurance policy.
Exactly.
They also stated that Jake Moody is tracking toward being ready for week 1, which is exciting, except for you said you wanted a kicker who kicked the ball between the uprights. I don't know if he's that. He will kick the ball.
Well, he did it once.
I don't.
In a walk-off fashion over Denver.
He did it more than once.
Yeah, I'd have to confirm that, but he did hit the big kick to win the game. The only game they've won so far this preseason.
That's true.
Jake Moody with the walk-off, the limp-off.
I mean, he's a third-round pick. What else would you expect? You didn't think he was going to miss it, did you?
He better not. I mean, wow.
Pittsburgh is one of the toughest places to kick in the NFL.
Is it because the wind, the turf, the crowd?
I've never been there. It's not the crowd. There are a lot of places that have crazy crowds. I think it's something about the construction, the weather, whatever. And I would imagine it's worse in November and December than it is in September. But it's known to be one of the most difficult places to kick. And so if you're asking me if I'm nervous about that week 1, oh, hell yes.
Sure.
That's huge. And I'm not going to just fall back on Brock Purdy's tidy red zone percentage and be like, yeah, we're fine. We'll just do touchdowns. You know what I mean? If he goes out there and mahers this thing on week 1, that is a problem. The Steelers are good. I think the Steelers are good.
Well, the spread is within a field goal.
2.5.
So you would expect that it may come down to a field goal, and they signed Matthew Wright, a guy who was kicked for a couple of different teams, as a contingency plan in case the rookie, who has not looked good, is not ready. So it's either a rookie who has been shaky at best or a guy who has never kicked for you before. All the while, Robbie Gould is just chilling wherever Robbie's chilling, waiting for some other kicker situation to pop up.
Well, Robbie's not going to sign in this situation because the 49ers are planning to go with Jake Moody.
Sure.
Robbie's not coming in for a week.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So that's why they grabbed who they grabbed. There's a lot of kickers available, no doubt, but the ones who are like, no, I'd like a gig, not a week-long paycheck. That's not what I'm looking for. So they had to go with someone from the B celebrity crowd, if you will.
Man.
And so, sure, that's a goal. But I'd also say this, like, I think, and I don't mean this for our show, there's no avoiding the story that has been the 49ers. And so the name Trey Lance, I hate to break it to you, it's going to keep coming up. It's a part of the 49ers story. But I think for the 49ers, the organizational goal is next week gets here and they find a way to make it about week 1. And they find a way to make it about the season and winning football games. I think it's a big part of why they traded Trey Lance. I think you have a hard time arguing that Brandon Allen is markedly better than Trey Lance, but you don't have a hard time arguing is that Brandon Allen's situation is a hell of a lot quieter than Trey Lance's.
You're saying he's less of a distraction than Trey Lance?
You think? So I think that's to me, that's kind of what we and they want to tie up here in the next 48 hours.
And they've tied it up, and hopefully by the time we all get to Monster Monday, and then we get to next Tuesday when Labor Day is behind us, and then we can all squarely look at Pittsburgh and start to break down matchups, and we'll play the schedule game and go through each and every game, and we can all make our predictions on how the season will go and all the rest of that fun stuff.
Absolutely. But we know what the tone is like now. And for many of you, it's been an offseason struggling to find sort of a peaceful outlook or thought or feeling about this organization, about its head coach. I've listened to it. I fail to see the anger-worthy stuff, but we want to put it out to you, especially since Kyle had another, I guess you'd call this, I don't know, what's the word? This isn't an incident, but it's another press conference situation where people came away with a bad feeling, right?
Yeah, and I think it's almost impossible to not come away with a bad feeling because the answers that Kyle's giving you are going to be incomplete because what Kyle really wants to say, he can't say. What Kyle really is telling you is that Trey Lance isn't good enough and he made a mistake. But you can't just say that because you don't want to disparage Trey Lance. So you have to dance around it. And Jimmy Garoppolo coming in off the top rope unnecessarily, I think just adds fuel to the fire because now he's got to answer questions about Jimmy G. And all Kyle wants to do is talk about this team. They're at 13-4 last year. They were 15-5 overall. They're a great team. They're coming into this year with a lot of expectations and a very deep roster. He wants to talk about that. He doesn't want to talk about Trey and Jimmy and the QB room and draft picks and why that happened and how it happened. So I get his frustration.
Yeah, absolutely. I get it, but would love to hear and just sit back and listen. Where's the beef? And try to understand a little bit more about why the 49er offseason has sounded like it sounded. Let's start with Paul in Fremont here on Willard and Dibs. Hey, Paul, what are you doing?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Sure can.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, as I've been listening to all the off-season chatter, it's been very interesting to me that the fans and the media have been so interested, first of all, in a second and third position. I feel like for most teams, no one ever talks about who the second and third players are. It's usually just focused on the starter. But, since we are in the situation, I do feel like maybe the fans have gotten so angry over the last couple of years, just mainly because the 49ers have been so close to winning the championships in the last couple of years. And when you're just so close to winning it, you just feel like you've tasted the championship already, and you don't cross that finish line. The fans, the critics, whatever you want to call them, they just start placing all the blame on someone. And in this case, it's all Kyle Shanahan's fault that he traded all those picks for Trey Lance and it didn't pan out. And that's why we're not in the promised land, and it's all his fault. But yeah, I would also, I'm more of the opinion that this just happened. So for most fans, I feel like, I feel like we're in a really blessed position already. There's not much more to complain about. I mean, it definitely beats losing every year. It definitely beats not even being close to the NFC Championship. It definitely beats not having a winning team. But yeah, I'd like to hear more of you guys' thoughts on it.
Well, Paul, let me ask. So would it be an accurate portrayal of your statement that there's a general frustration of not winning the whole thing, and then people are taking that out on Kyle, basically sort of like misplaced anger? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think it's totally misplaced, and I think if we were to look at this objectively, it's just you're just going to miss on your pick sometimes, and when you're trying to go big, sometimes just going to come up a little bit short. But since Brock Purdy has been knocking it out of the park pretty much whenever he has been able to play, it's hard to be too mad at Kyle.
Yeah, I see. Paul, thanks. I'm with Paul. So I'm 0 for 1 on where's the beef.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I mean, there is beef, but it's not a big double animal style size burger because they went 13-4.
It's the only way I eat them.
Right, but in this case, if you want to talk about beef, the Kyle Shanahan burger, there's not a lot of beef on that burger, in my opinion, because they've done so well and they've been successful. And that's why I think this year is so big, because you've got Brock Purdy, and if he does what he did last year, not win every game, but plays well, and you have success, then the Kyle Shanahan burger is a veggie burger once again.
Bobby, stay right where you are, but it's fascinating because you're saying it's not a double burger of beef, but I
There's
feel
no beef.
But I feel like the offseason there was. This was a loud offseason. This was a very, very loud offseason. And sure, I understand some of the pieces of it. I'm not dumb. Like we all get what the conversation was. But does it just go away now because we've arrived on about a week from the first game?